Wow, Canelo Alvarez says he's down to have a trilogy fight with Gennady Golovkin under one condition. The fight must be at 168 pounds, super middleweight. Wow. We're going to talk about that in this video. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also, subscribe to my channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Listen, if you love what I'm doing, smash the like button. I drop daily content, live streams, boxing news, the latest and greatest. If you enjoy that kind of thing and you want to be tapped in, this is your one-stop shop, Boxingego. So make sure you guys smash the like button, subscribe. Also, you can hit the bell notification to get post notifications when I go live, drop new content so you don't miss a thing. A lot of information, a lot of stuff is coming up recently. Floyd got his hat taken by Jake Paul, Canelo's fighting Saunders, etc. So you don't want to miss anything. Definitely tap in with me. Now, Canelo Alvarez is fight week. He's fighting Billy Joe Saunders. We'll see tonight what happens in that particular fight. But the question came up as to what he's going to do next. And he addressed the possibility of potentially facing Golovkin a third time. And this is what Canelo Alvarez said. As far as a trilogy fight with Gennady, hey, no, guys, have Max, big drama. This is what Canelo said. Quote, the truth is I'm open for anything. If the fight happens after unifying at 168 pounds, I'm open for anything. But it would be at 168 pounds. Canelo continues by saying, if Golovkin wants to fight with me, he has to do it. Why wouldn't he do it? I went up from 154 to 160 to fight with him. And, you know, he says that he doesn't necessarily have to fight him in the third fight. He says, no, I've done a lot. I fought a lot of good fighters, a lot of champions. I beat Golovkin, and I think that everything else will leave the legacy of my career, end quote. So there you have it. Canelo Alvarez letting it be known that he's not anti-fighting Gennady Golovkin, but if he did fight him, it would need to take place at 168 pounds. I want to give you guys my thoughts in this video. Again, smash the like button. I hate it. In the words of In Living Color, hated it. I think this fight is passe. I think the ship has sailed. I personally, Ego, have no interest in watching Canelo versus Triple G Part 3. Listen, it's almost like I haven't even watched the movie, but I can already tell. Coming to America, they waited 30 years before they made a sequel. So I haven't personally watched it. The first one is a classic movie. Everybody knows that. Eddie Murphy, Arsenio Hall, Samuel L. Jackson, Cuba Gooding Jr. in the first one, James Earl Jones, etc. But it's hard to recreate magic if it happens after, like much after, you know, when like time elapses, I guess you could say. And I feel like the chapter should be closed for Canelo Golovkin. If they didn't get this done, like as one of the early fights when Canelo first signed to DAZN and Triple G first signed on to DAZN, then I think it's too far gone, in my personal opinion. I know I won't be paying for it, and I definitely don't want to see it. So my reason, in case anybody's wondering, Golovkin is 39 years old, so he's pushing 40. Beyond that, we've already seen it for 24 rounds. Beyond that, it actually makes it worse that Canelo Alvarez is now saying that if they do fight, it will have to happen at 168. That makes, I didn't even want, even if he said I'll fight the fight at 160, I still wouldn't want to see it, but I definitely don't want to see it at 168. Let's look at it. Gennady Golovkin, he did fight in the 160s as an amateur. So I get that. But as a pro, he hasn't fought at 168, so he has no history there. Meanwhile, Canelo has fought as high as 175 against a champion, Sergey Kovalev, knocked him out. He has fights with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. at 164.5, coming up from 154. He has Danny Jacobs, who missed the same day, you know, purposely missed the same day weigh-in. That fight was at 160, but Jacobs, you know, probably rehydrated. You have the Caleb Smith fight. The Billy Joe Saunders fight is about to happen. Rocky Fielding. So Canelo already has multiple fights with bigger guys and or fights above 160. Golovkin, he doesn't have any recent action outside of Steve Rolls really above 160. And even in the Steve Rolls fight, Golovkin was getting touched up a bit from, considering the fact that Steve Rolls was such an unknown commodity and no one really knew who he was. Golovkin was getting hit in that fight. I think we've seen a major regression in Gennady Golovkin. Again, he's 39 years old. So at the point when they fight, he'll be 40, close to 40, something like that. And then more importantly, you look at the other performances like the Sergey Derevyanchenko fight. I definitely thought Derevyanchenko beat him better than Canelo and other close fights like Jacobs and things like that. So he should have lost the Derevyanchenko fight, so he really shouldn't even be a champion right now. And then to boot, Canelo is saying he has to come up to 168. Hard pass for me. Really don't want to see it. I think DAZN dropped the ball entirely. When they first came out, they had a pompous British promoter, Eddie Hearn, who was talking a lot of stuff about we got $1 billion war chest and the money's all right here. And every top name, we got all the top names except for Charlo at 160 to 168. So you have to come fight us. But the thing is, they haven't really made too many of those fights, those interchangeable fights over the years. They're just now starting to make like Canelo, Caleb Smith, Canelo versus Billy Joe Saunders. And that's all happened in the last 5-6 months. From December 2020 to May, that's when they're getting these fights. So for the last several years, they helped the 160 division die because they weren't making popping fights like Demetrius Andrade and Triple G. Like a Derevyanchenko Triple G rematch, like Canelo Triple G when they first both got to DAZN. So I just think too much has changed. Canelo seems to have improved. He keeps banking fights and wins at the higher divisions against bigger guys. He's youthful. He has youth on his side. So at the end of the day, I don't want to see Canelo versus a 40-year-old Golovkin when he's already not looking the same. It's just like Canelo kind of aged him out, waited till he got, regressed a bit and maybe lost some of that spark and hunger. Another thing is Gennady Golovkin, since he's been with Jonathan Banks, I don't think anyone has said that he looks better as a fighter than when he was with Abel Sanchez. So that's another thing. He looks almost more tamed, or his style looks different since he's not doing the quote unquote Mexican style. So for me, I just really have very little interest in this fight. Golovkin at one point, there were talks of him fighting Chavez Jr. and Carl Froch at 168. His team said they could fight anyone from 154 all the way to 175. Then they changed it, said 154 to 168. Meanwhile, none of this ever happened. It never materialized, and Golovkin never made the leap up in weight. Meanwhile, Canelo has. So it's kind of ironic, if you will, that Canelo Alvarez, his team and him, they didn't really talk about this, but he's actually fought in all the divisions that Golovkin's team said Golovkin was strong enough to beat top guys at. Golovkin ducked the Andre Ward smoke at 168. Then he wouldn't go up to 175 for Andre Ward. We already know that. So fights like that never materialized. The Carl Froch, Chavez Jr. fights fell apart for Golovkin. And, years later, I think we could just let them go their separate way. It's now to the point where Jaime Munguia a couple years ago was rejected by the Nevada Commission to fight Triple G because of who Triple G was in the division at that time, and no one knew Jaime Munguia before he beat Saddam Ali and things like that. Fast forward to the future, they just had negotiations for Jaime Munguia and Triple G, and it looks like Triple G is the one, and him and his team have other plans. They trying to fight other people, maybe Ryota Murata or that Falco dude. So I just think Canelo and Triple G, the trilogy, they just waited too long. Like I said, it's like Coming to America, trying to recreate the same magic 30 years later. Eddie Murphy hasn't been as active in Hollywood. Like, you have to understand, Eddie Murphy at the time, he's doing Harlem Nights and 48 Hours and Trading Places. So he's like in the prime. Eddie Murphy, Raw, Delirious. It's hard to recreate that when you've been a little bit more dormant and you haven't been on the scene as much and maybe not as sharp and stuff like that. And I think that's what it is. I think Canelo versus Triple G at this point, it would be like doing Coming to America 30 years later, where it's going to be harder to create that same magic, right? I know I don't see Triple G beating Canelo at this point. And that's another reason, because what's the point if it's just a one-sided easy fight to predict? You get what I'm saying? So that's just my 2 cents. Make sure you guys click the link in the description, get TUBEBUDDY. Let me know if you still want to see Canelo versus Triple G 3. I think DAZN really dropped the ball in not having things up to par with Canelo's contract when he was with Golden Boy and having an understanding of what direction they were all trying to be on. And then now Canelo has sued, got out of his contract, and he's doing his own thing. I really don't have any urge to see the Triple G trilogy with Canelo at this point. While Canelo's 30 and Triple G's almost 10 years older, 40. And again, performances have been regressing. Even the last fight with Triple G, he fought a non-puncher and it took him several rounds. He was stopping better opponents years before quicker. And this guy, Camille Sesmeta, has no punching power, 21 fights and 5 knockouts. And it took a couple rounds, like I forget the exact round, 7 rounds or whatever for Triple G to stop him. And he also looked like he was winded and tired in there. And he got hurt the fight before that with Derevyanchenko. So I'll pass. Let me know what you guys think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. We working. Are you tired of your YouTube videos not getting any views? Well, consider TUBEBUDDY. I've used TUBEBUDDY for years to scale up my YouTube channel. Now we're sitting over 200,000 subscribers. TUBEBUDDY is a browser extension that offers a ton of built-in productivity and time-saving services to take your channel to the next level. Use my link in the description to get started with TUBEBUDDY and level up your channel faster. We working.